Onchan MHK Julie Edge brought two motions to July Tynwald which sought to increase the impartiality of the Tynwald Committee that polices the standards and conduct of Tynwald members. In quite an emotional speech, Ms Edge referred to an episode of bullying which she claimed to be the victim of in the previous House of Keys. I spoke to Julie Edge a few weeks ago and we discussed her concerns. You had two items on the June order paper which were withdrawn. You brought them to the July order paper. Can you tell us a little bit about what your motivation was for bringing them?
Yes, certainly. Obviously, I've been in here 7 years now, Phil, and over that time I've been observing, looking at the way the structure operates and identifying where things aren't quite right. And certainly having been a public servant for 38 years before you come in here, it was quite alarming to me, some of the structures and the way that business is done. And then obviously we did have the situation of having a Members' Standards Committee report, and I was just alarmed. Obviously I voted against that report. I was challenged about that you shouldn't do that. I'll do what's right.
This was the report into Mr Collister?
Yes, yeah. And, because of that made me think, actually, we need to change this, because members should not be able to challenge you on the way you've chosen to vote for your constituents or for your own personal principles. And so that's why I brought the motion. Also the one with regards to item 17, I think it was, to remove the speaker from the Tynwald Members' Standards. That was done because I could see the conflicts. I've recognised them, I've seen it, and I felt it's wrong that we have put somebody in that position as a parliament, that they have to try and be impartial. It's it's a small parliament, that's quite difficult, but when you're a chair of a committee that's actually stated in standing orders, so nobody else can be that chair because it's there in standing orders, I felt that wasn't right and it needed to be removed, and that anybody could chair that committee, but I also feel that it should be very independent of the system. We've seen it in other jurisdictions, we've seen it in Westminster. There's been many reports done into the situations and behaviours, and I've endured a tough time for 7 years. And I can tolerate it, but it's not right.
And of course, effectively what you're saying about the Speaker is that the Speaker is part of his role is to act as a sort of a listening ear, giving the opportunity for members to explain issues that they're concerned about. He's there to give advice to members and support to members. But also, with his role on this committee, he's there to pass judgment on members' standards and behaviour.
Yes, and that's where it's really, really wrong. That's not good governance, and certainly you're then relying on the individual, and I'm not saying anything about the current role, but that speaker role, it's down to the individual that's in that role, and that impartiality is key. And whether they would declare a conflict. Obviously we don't know what goes on in the committee. You assume they've declared conflicts. I've heard today that they say they do, but where's the register, where's the record? Oh, it's in the minutes. Minutes are very, very limited. And I just think we need to be fully open and transparent around the conduct of our members, and the public deserve the right to know that it's been done fairly, that the process is correct, and that we can move forward. And, here we are again with the amendment that's gone through on the conduct of members, that it's the same committee, that all of the debates been around today are now still in charge of it. Not right, in my opinion.
And your former colleague in the Council of Ministers, now backbencher, Chris Thomas, pointed out that the last time government had been bold enough to ask the public how much confidence they had in various aspects of government, and this also included Parliament, Tynwald was the lowest, had the lowest confidence rating of any of the areas that the public gave opinions on. So is this part of your argument that by having the system as is, or perhaps the changes to the system you were suggesting are necessary to allow the public to have more confidence?
I think we need to. Obviously, we've heard a lot about culture. We've had many situations and tribunals where the culture has been called out. And that's exactly what my motions were about today, trying to change that culture to accept that you can't look at yourselves. Let's look for somebody else to make that judgment on you. And then we can all have working relationships to carry on and make sure that we help support that change that's really required. The Chief Minister's repeatedly said he wants the culture to change. It's disappointing that I didn't get support on either of these today, because that's exactly what they are about, is changing that culture, making sure there's independent assessment of the honourable members in the court, and it is disappointing that they've failed. I didn't expect to get them through, I must admit, when I walked in the room today. I haven't been able to lobby. I haven't lobbied members because I think you should be impartial when you're doing a motion that's about them. However, I think it was quite clear there's possibility being a bit of lobbying gone on around, and that's everybody's quite right to do that. I'm quite right to bring the motion forward. It was disappointing to hear the mover in the first motion of the amendment to start making judgments about personal comments, and thanks to Minister Thomas and his wide experience and breadth of knowledge in here, he did feel that was a breach of standing orders.
So, effectively, the outcome of what you've proposed is that the committee that you were concerned about is undertaking a review of its own functions and membership, and you are asked to provide feedback to that committee. Do you not trust that committee?
I've provided feedback in the past, but it doesn't get published, so nobody knows you've done that. I'm not saying for that particular committee, but for two committees. It's not that I don't trust it. Again, we've brought up in the debate today that it needs to be completely transparent and all evidence published, unless you specifically state that you don't want it published. And that's where it becomes difficult, doesn't it? Because you're really getting a report presented that might not have all the facts, but the committee have had it, so they can talk about it, they can bring it to Tynwald. Who will bring that report to Tynwald? Can they keep that impartiality?
And of course the other motion, which was to remove the Speaker because you felt that having the ability to go to someone who wasn't likely at some point in the future to need to be passing judgment on your actions, as a member, you go to the Speaker for some level of support. So another amendment was passed, which includes putting the Deputy Speaker on. So you now have no independent ear to go and listen to, because both will now be statutory members of that committee.
Yeah, I was quite alarmed at that, to be honest, and surprised it got support. That's really is closing ranks, and let's strengthen our committee up. And Phil, from being in here yourself, these people are elected for 5 years. There's no possibility of changing it if it doesn't go to an independent source. So here we are, stuck with a situation that we've had quite an unsettling year in here, because of the activities that have gone on, and I feel that we need to move completely away from that. I've said in previous debates that we need to make sure that there's a change in committee members halfway through, so everybody gets the experience and opportunity. And to me, it's quite clear that they've already decided who the Speaker and Deputy Speaker are, possibly, for future parliaments if they're successful. I just feel that our behaviour in here has to be completely so that the public can uphold that trust in us for good governance, and that we're completely transparent and we're accountable. And I don't feel that the current system provides any accountability, only for a few people. I know Mrs. Kane, she commented that there was an independent individual brought in. Well, that's proof that the committee couldn't deal with it. So therefore, why can they deal with the next one? So to me, it's a missed opportunity for members today. Really disappointed that they couldn't see that it's about good governance and the future of the Isle of Man. And I don't know where I'll go next.
It was, well, I don't know. Were you surprised that despite there being a mixed view in Keys, I mean, you almost managed to defeat the First Amendment. It was a 12-11 in Keys. But there was no such... Well, no, there was a mix as well in Ledgeco on that. But on all the other votes, Ledgeco didn't really reflect the mixed views in Keys. It was very clearly a Ledgeco block vote against everything you were trying to do.
Yeah. I think you can see from the Parliament and the results that... people don't want to hear the controversial view. They don't want you to speak out and say what you think is the impression I certainly felt today. However, people know me well. I've always spoken up. I did in the last administration for whistleblowers and good governance, code of conducts, government code, conflicts of interest, and that's everything I've repeated again today. So they are pre-declared positions, and I just feel that it's a complete missed opportunity to make sure that we can build some confidence and trust in transparency, accountability and independence.
Some of the more shocking parts of what you had to say was the level of threats that were made against you in the previous House. I think the listeners may be quite surprised that you would be threatened with having police action taken against you as a member of Tynwald. Does that sort of thing really happen?
It certainly did happen, Phil. I was informed that obviously I was part of a political party when I came in here, and I was informed that my seat in Parliament might not be valid, and that was a complete shock to me, and absolutely astounding to then be told that it might be going to become an issue. Clearly, members were shocked in there today because that's something that you don't talk about. But I felt it was right today to give a really good example of what goes on in here. I had cancer at the time, and for me to have to justify and go to the Chief Constable to ask him, is there an investigation into me? And for him to say he would look into it, because quite clearly he doesn't know everything that's going on every day, but to then come back to me and say, there's absolutely no investigation into you and your election into this Parliament. So it was the old boys' club, in my opinion, Phil, threatening, because I was pushing forward on all of the things I'm talking about today to make sure we get transparency, fairness, greater accountability and good governance.
And there is an assumption made that with the new makeup of Tynwald, with lots of new members, many from quite progressive political sort of stances, that those dark old days of old boys clubs and the like are very much a thing of the past. But you don't appear to see it that way.
No, certainly it's not as bad, because clearly we've got more female members in here. It's certainly softened it. However, it shouldn't be about the representation, whether you're no matter what gender you are. It should be about whether you're doing the right job for the people of the Isle of Man. That's what we're elected for. Whether you're sticking to your principles and your manifesto, that's what we're in here for. And certainly you see that change after an election. People don't always stick to the principles approach that they took at the outset to get elected to come in here. Certainly it is a different house, and there's lots of challenges ahead, and there's going to be some tough decisions that need to be made, and that's when we'll see the real depth of commitment to make the changes the island and the people and the public are looking for. And it's not easy, and that is all down to changing culture, being able to support and bring people with you.
Moving then on to question time. There were a couple of questions there were several questions that you had to answer, but a couple that I picked up on, which I thought were quite good questions, because they were talking about effectively producing young people out of the education system in a better place to be able to take up employment and help grow the economy, which we so badly need. T-levels, technical qualification level, was one issue that Michelle Haywood had brought forward, and Jason Moorhouse was talking about work experience. Neither of them felt that the answers you gave them confidence that the department was interested in these areas.
So T-levels, as I stated in my answer, they're not available to the island and our jurisdiction at the present time. They're only available in England. So how can we talk about and introduce something if it's not available? However, we've always worked with BTEC, and as I said in my answer, which is Edexcel and Pearson's, we work with our examination boards to make sure that we are offering the right qualifications. There's lots of people taking BTEC qualifications, which really are the equivalent of the T-levels, and we will continue with them until we know that the structure that's been brought into the UK is working. We know it's already paused, and it certainly hasn't come through. So why would we want to commit to doing that for our young people if they're not going to get a qualification at the end of it, because it appears there's no qualifications at T-level being awarded to date? So work experience, obviously we've had difficulties with COVID, and obviously we've got other issues with staffing in our schools at the present time. The work experience programme, which was when you got a week out for an employment offer, it does work. We certainly don't. We're still doing that with individuals that feel that they need to go down those more pathways of a more technical apprenticeship style route. They do have that opportunity anyway, because I think it's 500 students we're studying this year up at UCM that are still in our secondary school, so that's aged between 14 and 16. So that's a large number of students. With regards to bringing it back, as Mr. Moorhouse, who's a teacher, knows, it's not necessarily going to be that, because what we're hearing from the businesses is that they're looking for individuals with different skills to sending them into a workplace, as one honourable member said, to do photocopying for a week. So we want to make sure that we do the right structure for our students and give them the skills to help them with their futures, and that's about making sure they progress out of education and into the workplace or onto further education.
A particular area that Michelle Haywood was concerned about was in terms of the IT sector, gaming and the like. What sort of things does the department offer in relation to that?
Well, obviously, we do have an ICT curriculum within our schools that prepares students to go forward. Obviously, in sixth form, they can go on to do media studies and that. But I think one of the things, and you'll know, I was born on the island. You get a job opportunity and your employer always continue to invest in you and train you for the skills that they required. I think some employers still do that, but there seems to be an expectation at the minute that government should be doing that. Our role in education is to make sure that we get all of our students through the education system, progress to the best of their ability and come out at 16 and either continue in their education or go out into the workplace. We've recently set up a skills board, and that's got independent members on it, and one of the key things that we are looking at is the apprenticeship scheme, the vocational training assistance scheme, and we recognise, due to the problems with the economy, that we do need to make sure that that's targeted for the areas of need. And certainly, we've got a lot of jobs at the present time in hospitality, and the UCM has recently brought back the catering qualifications, because they now have an excellent chef in place to do that training again. So we will see people coming through. some of the changes have been from previous administrations, and we're picking that up, and we're going to drive that forward to make sure there's plenty of opportunity and pathways on island, but also give students access to the UK university structure, which is rapidly moving. And of course we've all got AI to think about. There's going to be lots of change there, and I do have a meeting next week with regards to that, and we need to embrace it.
That was Julie Edge MHK, member for Onchan, but also Education Minister. Michelle Haywood asked the question about T-levels. Was she impressed with the answer she received?
Not especially. I've had several approaches from industry, especially digital and creative industries, saying that they want a qualification that 16 to 18-year-olds can take that equips them more for the workplace. And within that suite of technical levels, there's also finance and legal and childcare. There's lots of things in there that feed very well into where the Isle of Man is positioned, and into job vacancies that we know we have. And the T-levels are structured so you do 80% in the classroom and 20% with an employer. So over a 2-year course, you'll do 45 days actually in a workplace. And so you come out already with some experience and some understanding. And I genuinely think for the Isle of Man, where government has such a close relationship with the businesses and the Chamber of Commerce, that it would be possible to get that up and running. I know in the UK there have been some problems in terms of where you have urban areas, they tend to offer greater sort of variety of courses, and in rural areas it's harder to get that work experience lined up. But that's not the case for us. We should be able to work around those issues. And I think there's a real call for putting some of those T-level qualifications on the menu for our young people to opt for, with a view to complete that 2-year course and then go into the world of work.
In terms then of the department, I mean, obviously the Minister has a number of constraints that she has to operate under, presumably by introducing potentially a whole raft of new training opportunities for students. There's a cost associated with that.
There is. I think some of it would displace some of the current BTEC programme, which is obviously much more focused on your portfolio that you've generated within the college or wherever you're doing it, and this is almost like kind of forcing that step outside. So actually I think possibly some of the same tutors are probably relevant for that, and for other sectors I think there would be a cost with us taking those extra ones. But however, you look at traditional A-level subjects and the numbers taking those are falling because they're not relevant, and our young people are forced into taking subjects they don't necessarily want to take because that's all that's on the menu. With the T-levels, you get UCAS points as well, so they would be equally valid if at the end of 18 you decided you did want to go on to university and wanted to study further. I know the Minister said that there were some technical problems with them being extended to overseas territories, but I think we probably could have that conversation, and I'm not convinced today from her answer that conversation's actually even taken place.
And of course, what we need in the Isle of Man is a improvement in terms of productivity amongst the workforce, and opportunities, you would have thought anyway, opportunities to have a workforce that's educated, or people entering the workforce who are better educated with more targeted skills would be something this government would want to sign up to.
Yeah, you'd think so, and you'd think, I mean, particularly in the digital sector, you've got sort of software development is quite strong in several sectors here, and but you look at what's in the computer science A-level, and it's quite dry material, and it's not really been updated. It's not really kept pace with what is at the forefront of moving technology. And so I think the chance to look at something that it really does equip our young people for the world of work, whilst getting them those critical UCAS points, if should they ever need to bank it to do anything further, would be a win-win.
That was Michelle Haywood MHK. Should T-levels be offered to Manx children, or are they better off sticking with more conventional exams? Was Ms Edge right to ask Tynwald to consider the role of the Speaker and the Standing Committee in considering members' conduct? And did her motions backfire on her? Let me know your thoughts on the programme by contacting Phil Gorn at manxradio.com, and get in touch if you have any ideas for future shows. Don't forget this programme is available as a podcast on Manx Radio's website. For now though, I'm Phil Gorn. Goro Mayo, thanks for listening.